Welcome to the Hen House Podcast, where mothers rise together in authentic conversation and sacred connection. With your hosts, Chantal Breanne and Andrea Sjoeberg. It's time to jump into the Hen House. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hen House Podcast with me, Chantal Breanne and Andrea Sjoeberg. And today we're going to be interviewing Charlotte Scott, who is a woman's bodywork specialist with a focus on pregnancy and childbirth. So welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. I got a massage from you when I was pregnant. My doula had referred me to you I was having like Braxton Hicks that wouldn't stop. So that's how I first was introduced to you. And I refer a lot of my clients to you.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you.
Happy to be here and talk about our favorite subject.
Right? Yeah. So I guess we have some questions for you, but how did you get into sort of this field of work? What led you into this field of work?
Well, I'll start with the fact that I have 4 children, and a good bit of my life, it was expanded over a lot of years. So not so much birth, because when I was giving birth was very, very medical. I had a lot of very difficult medical births, so I didn't know back then. But I've always been really connected to just women's journey. And as a young mom, having friends, all my friends had children. And then as mine grew up, and honestly, back then I was an accountant.
Oh, okay.
Most people are shocked by that.
Yes, I think that is a little shocking. I love the leap though.
I am glad I made it. Really what I started with, I got really interested in things like yoga. I was teaching yoga, Reiki, meditation practices, finding ways for stress relief. And this was when my children got older, and I was really just burnt out on accounting. So I was finding ways to de-stress myself. And so I got into those things and got really interested and dove pretty deep and started a company called Conscious Fertility Through Conscious Parenting. Oh. And really what it was about was being able to use meditation and yoga to help women, just get their mind and their bodies in alignment with their desires. And really just trying to bring more of a focus back in my mothering days, my early mothering days, I was kind of a unicorn. And so I was really into nutrition and how nutrition affected children and all of that. And back then it was like, that's crazy. Like it doesn't matter, and even one of my children had ADD, wasn't diagnosed because it wasn't a thing back then. But I did a elimination diet and found out that he was allergic to red food dye. Oh. And even to just get his teachers and his grandparents to get on board with that was like pushing uphill. So it made me start this like awareness, journey. And through that, the women that I met, they would say, that when they would get pregnant, they'd say, I want you to go to the hospital with me. Home birth really there wasn't very much home birth around me at the time. I didn't have any resources. And I agreed to do it. And then when I got there, I was appalled. I was like, oh my gosh, we have not changed. And this is about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We haven't changed. We haven't changed at all.
Yeah.
Since my horrific medical births. My first birth was twilight sleep.
Oh, wow.
I know,
Wow,
right?
it's
It was
crazy.
1974.
Wow.
But even in 1988 with my last baby, you couldn't get out of bed. You know, it was, you labored in a hospital bed, which made it very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So as I did that, I just had this desire, because I'm a learning bug, you know, I love to learn. And so I decided to take a doula certification and class. And I was like, yeah, I probably won't get certified, but I'm going to go do it. And then when I was taking the class, I was just like, literally everything that I have ever learned applies here. All the mind body work, all the meditation, the physical alignment, which I didn't know that much at the time, how much that would play a part.
Yeah.
But I got hooked, like, because you do 3 births to get certified. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll do that. And I found Teresa Howard, who owned Labor of Love. And she kind of took me under her wing and said, yeah, let me mentor you a little bit and let you do births. And I still didn't think I was, you know, I thought this is kind of fun, just like a lot of things I do.
Right.
And, but the first couple of births I went to, I was like, oh my gosh, my heart got like sucked up into it.
Right.
You know, and so the journey of being a doula and attending births, I've probably attended about 300 by now.
Oh, wow.
I've stopped counting.
Amazing.
I've stopped counting some time ago.
Yeah.
But in those early days, there was so much, like, one, personal growth. I remember calling Teresa, my mentor, and saying, I had no idea how much I was going to grow. Like, I didn't
Wow.
realize, you know, like what an emotional journey and spiritual journey this was going to be for me.
Yeah.
And because that is kind of how I approach life, I really just kept doing it. And I was a massage therapist, and I typically did work on women. And so also in my yoga classes were women. So I mean, honestly, when I was a teenage mom, because I got pregnant really early in life, I was making little groups of women. You know, that's
Yeah.
just been my thing. I was like, let's figure out how we can do this better.
Right.
And so through all that, just kind of made the connections of prenatal massage. And I did that for a long time. And the weaving of those two things together was beautiful, but nothing compares to when I started doing my abdominal massage. That changed my life. It changed my doula practice. It was such an awareness of the missing piece for me.
Mm.
So that's a 20-year journey in a small summary, but you know, those 300 births is my education.
Yeah.
You know,
How did you come into the Mayan abdominal massage? Because I love that you mentioned the spiritual growth and kind of this spiritual journey. And I know a lot of the Mayan, we'll call it magic,
yeah.
and teachings are deeply spiritual and passed down, you know, through
Um,
long
it was the
lineages.
thing that attracted me the most. Even many, many years ago, I want to say way before I became a doula, I read about Maya massage, and I was so fascinated by it. And I wanted to learn it. But at the time, it was very, very expensive, and there wasn't anything local. Um, you know, I think she had just started bringing it outside of Belize, and
Right. Well, even now it's still quite rare,
it is. It really,
depending. Like there's maybe only a handful in the whole Atlanta area,
it's true. And, you
potentially.
know,
So,
it is a deep knowledge, you know, and we don't really like that much these days. You know, we want to get in and out, get our CEUs and move on. But
right.
for me, the
We need to
whole,
bring back the depth.
yeah, and I have to, I just can't not. I don't do a traditional practice.
Yeah.
Chantel can tell you, you don't come in and just get a fluff and buff and leave.
Yeah. Well, she can say that about me too. I'm actually a chiropractor. I don't know if you know that, but I'm going, if this is everybody else, I'm somewhere like over here. And it's like, who else does exactly what you do? And I'm going, no one. Sorry, no one. I could give you two people that are 2 or 3 people who are in the ballpark.
Right. Because if you integrate your knowledge into your practice and then function from a heart level, you know, it's going to go deep. It's going to really affect your clientele and you. You know, that's the thing I love about it. All the work that I've done as a doula and a therapist has changed me. You know, women teach me, every one of them. And when you come in, it's not just the body work, it's the educational piece. I feel like if you haven't left with some nuggets of truth for yourself, I haven't done my job, you know, and so it's longer appointments and it's time to, you know, help women understand their bodies in a different way. You know, sometimes it's pregnancy or fertility that's not happening very well before women really start to know their bodies. And I love that. I love the opportunity to work at that level where we're integrating things physically, emotionally, spiritually, all to, you know, I do consider birth sacred. To me, it really, that was the beauty of it. And it still is. I'm semi-retired from doula work, mostly because my massage practice is so busy. And that does keep me with my, you know, kind of into the pulse of it. But, you know, age has really made it hard to do the on-call mostly. I just did an induction last month with someone I met that was just like, okay, yes, I said. She was supposed to give birth at the birth center where I work. And it ended up being a 4-day induction at Grady.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. You're like,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And they transfer to Grady now, right?
Yeah, they do. They do. And that's the first time I've ever been at Grady. And I will say that parts of it were really good and parts of it were not, mostly because we both, the mama and I both, were coming from a place of as natural as possible.
Yeah.
And there comes a point in a hospital where they're like, well, forget that.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to do what we're going to do. But, you know, I slept on the floor for 2 nights.
Wow. I think that's awesome that you still do births on occasion, even though you're kind of
mostly repeat clients who, you know, some of us have had 4 and 7 babies together, so they won't let me say no. I don't care if I sit in a chair over there.
We want you.
You have to be there. I'm not much to sit in the chair though, but you know, to me, it's kind of back to like the path that got me here was also as a doula working in the Atlanta area. You know, I was really in that advocacy for women during the time pre-COVID, where we were starting to make a difference. We really were getting hospitals to pay more attention. Mothers were getting hospitals to pay more attention. Our rights as women in the labor and delivery were becoming more accessible. Even if there wasn't the patience for it, they were having to say, well, if we want the patients, we have to cooperate. So we were getting a lot more acceptance of what we consider very normal things when you look at natural birth.
Yeah.
But, and then the birth center opened, the Atlanta Birth Center, and Anjali Hinman, who is one of the most amazing women's advocates I've ever met, had headed up the birth center in the beginning, and it was her fault. I would literally follow that woman to the ends of the earth. That's what I would say. She's caught some of my grandchildren.
Oh,
She's just
wow.
such a beautiful women's advocate, such
Yeah.
an amazing midwife. And she kept saying, come on. And I'd be down there delivering some stuff as they were setting up the space. It is a 501c3, so everything was donated. And she's like, look at this room. I just see you in this room. And I said, okay. Because back then I was a doula, I was teaching childbirth classes, and I had a massage practice. So I'm like, why am I going to drive an hour downtown? But my heart, first for her, but also for the work that was being done at the birth center, I just was like, yes, I'll do it. Well, one day a week, a half a day a week turned into 4 full-time days.
Oh, wow.
I got really, really busy. And then the pandemic happened, and I stopped dueling because of that so much, except unless they were coming to the birth center. I wasn't teaching childbirth classes anymore. Our space was gone, and I tried the virtual thing for a while, and it was okay, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
And so I really just focused very much on my practice. And in that time, the integrating Maya, I've really learned to integrate Maya in spinning babies, which is, really the main alignment information that we've had for decades. And I've been trained for years through it. But when I learned Maya, it really came into alignment with their teachings as well. So I really love all that together, and it keeps me really busy. So I really only doula when my heart says you have to.
That makes sense. And and part of the reason why I wanted to interview you is I know how powerful your massages can be. I've seen it with my clients, like for breech babies, specifically. So can you kind of talk to us about like how that works? Because I'm so fascinated about it.
So the first thing I want to say about Maya massage, and I was trained as the Arvigo Maya massage, which is Rosita Arvigo, and she has a fascinating story, and we'll talk about that hopefully. Yeah. Now it's the Maya Massage Collective, I believe. It kind of through COVID transformed, but the training is not just particularly about pregnancy and childbirth. It is digestive health, and all aspects of women's health. There are also aspects and benefits for men, but they just haven't been my clientele. Okay. So I don't have a lot of knowledge about that. I do know infertility massaging men can increase their sperm motility.
I've heard it's very good for prostate health too.
Yes, it is.
But again, so I actually had Mayan abdominal massage for 2 years. Oops, what did I open here?
Wonderful.
Before I got pregnant. And
That's
I just said, I just want to be very supportive of my body. And the person I saw worked really only with women as well. So I mostly learned about that. But I had significant differences in digestive health. And also my periods were so much easier when I was doing that consistently. So I loved it.
Good for you. Did you also do the self-care?
I did. Yes, I did almost. I did the self-massage every morning. Almost probably 90% of all mornings for like 2 years.
Wow.
And then through my pregnancy, but only the part that you're allowed to do during pregnancy. And then for about a year, I did the castor packs.
After.
Like maybe once or twice a week.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So, and I did that for 2 years. And then I actually managed, even though I moved during my pregnancy, I found someone who does it where I live now too. So I actually managed to do it consistently
I love that.
through the whole time, and it's been wonderful. So, but keep going.
Yeah, no, I love hearing your experience. And I love that you did your self-care. It's a difficult piece for women, but it really, when you learn, Maya, that's where you start. You start at self-care. And I love that piece so much. I mean, that's just been a passion of mine all through my journey, is my own self-care, supporting women with theirs, and self-touch in that way that is so educational. A lot of times introducing that is the first time women may have a healthy relationship to their body. And a lot of times that's the reason for infertility. And also can be obstacles in pregnancy and childbirth as well, just not having that relationship to their body. So you spend a lot of time there first, and then you learn the overall, treatment for general population, which is really a big focus on digestive health, but also, menses problems, menopause, all the whole journey. I'm just going to stop here and tell you a little story about my granddaughter. She's 8 years old, and she has a terrible diet. She really does. I sometimes say she lives off air, but so she has a lot of constipation, and they've been living with me since my daughter got pregnant almost 2 years ago. And so I've had this opportunity with her to really educate her about her body in that way and her digestive health. And it works so good. It also works really great on infants, especially in that very beginning when they get constipated so easily. Like a little pelvic rock and some massage, digestive massage and sacrum, works so good. But with my granddaughter, I love, because now she comes to me. She'll be like a little knock on my door and, can I come in? Please rub my tummy.
Aww.
Like, she gets it now, the association of how she feels and what she needs. She's not ready to do it for herself. She'd rather Yaya did it. But, even using castor oil for her, I don't do a castor oil pack. I use just a castor oil massage with her, and it works instantly. It works instantly, might be exaggeration, but it works so
quickly.
Yeah, that she can associate even at her age. Like, oh, I know what I need. I don't feel good, so I need to poop.
Right. I think children, though, innately recognize what's good for them often so much better than adults do.
Right. They don't have to unlearn anything.
Right. Where adults are like, no, that can't be. No, like, oh, I don't deserve that. Oh, I don't have time for that. Oh, like adults get so much chatter up top, and kids are more like, nope, that's what I want. That's what I need. And, sometimes they'll also fight it tooth and nail to not do it, but
I know. And
but, but there's this, they just have this such natural intuition.
They do. For so many things. And for women, especially mothers, we're busy, and that's that time out for self-care. I think it's one of the things about breech that is like the first thing we talk about, which is slow down. Your baby's telling you to slow down and pay attention to your body, and let's figure out what's going on. But kind of that jumping around. But so when you learn Maya, you learn self-care, you learn digestive health. All of those things are so amazing. And digestive health, it really helps with absorption and also assimilation. And, again, that self-care of paying attention to what your body needs, including what you put in it. Infertility, including, fertility intervention. It's really a wonderful companion for that, because what we're doing in fertility is sometimes freeing up the flow through the fallopian tubes, sometimes through different things that happen in life. The fallopian tubes are kind of tied up in connective tissue and adhesions. And so to get that freed up, to balance the uterus, which is really the main thing about it's the womb work that makes Maya what it is. And so with that, it's infertility, we're really balancing it. You think, why would my uterus not be in alignment? And that can be for all kinds of things. Constipation is definitely one of them. Trauma is another. And so a lot of times you're working through, even with infertility, both digestive health, but also the body's relationship to itself and its experiences. So the stories of that womb need sometimes to have the freedom of expression. And then to follow that up with self-healing as well is so beautiful. I do see a lot of lovely, lovely fertility stories. I wish we could address everything. I wish it was that simple, because it's very difficult for women who either can't conceive or can't keep a pregnancy, so working physically, emotionally, and spiritually in that realm is really beautiful. My focus has been for a long time pregnancy, because of being a doula. I was always working with my clients, but also being at the birth center, the clientele. And so for the last nearly 8 years, that has been what I've been doing. So fertility is a smaller part of my practice. And I do also have some women that are in menopause that come, and I love that too, because even though the uterus isn't functioning in the same way, when I took Maya, it really changed my relationship to my body. I have always had kind of a different sort of awareness. I am an empath and highly intuitive, and have studied a lot of somatic practices. But it was that self-massage, literally, to my uterus, and a lovely meditation that we did along with it, that I was like, oh, I'm kind of was feeling like she was a little bitty raisin in there. Just kind of shriveled and dried up, not necessary. And how wrong I was. It really brought a fluidity back to my creativity that was feeling very sort of dried up in my creativity. And so many things changed for me with that. So I love when menopausal women come in and we can really dive into the hydration of ourselves that feels like it starts to dry as the hormones shift. And that's one of the things that helps in pregnancy is the hormonal balance. And of course, the uterus is going through magnificent changes, 500 times its capacity. Round ligaments that aren't like any other ligament in the body. They're stretching right along with that uterus. And I do love chiropractic, Andrea. I will say that every single session, I'm always talking about it. I love when women come in and we're working in a dual relationship. Your work makes mine better. My work makes hers better.
Right. It's very synergistic. I've never seen it as a competition.
Oh yeah, no.
It's like, no, this is just every body, especially pregnant bodies, need as much love and assistance and support as you can pour into them, because that benefits mom, it benefits baby. It's like,
and it benefits us.
It benefits, and it benefits the whole world, like, it's like, if we can have babies coming in who aren't traumatized, who come in and have mothers starting motherhood from this empowered, like, wow, like this was like the seat of creation, and like we brought this soul in, and here's this beautiful infant, and they're coming in with the best chance at life, and that
Well,
changes the
trying
world.
right.
So
I'm really trying not to wet my glasses
So-
up.
I know I
You're
keep
really
getting
speaking
but
goosebumps.
so deeply to my heart. It's why
but
it
that,
is my
yeah,
mission. It's my mission
yeah,
to reduce birth trauma.
yeah, that's part of our mission with the Hen House podcast as well.
Yeah.
Chantal and I both had birth trauma when we had both. Well, for her first birth, I only have one. She's actually 10 months today, which is exciting. So she got her birthday song in Swedish already. So.
Yeah, that's
And
wonderful.
But coming out of that, I just was going, wow, like what happened was not okay.
Yeah.
And how am I going to take what has happened, because it felt very spiritual to me. Like it felt very, very, like somehow this was it was very awful. My experience, according to me. Like I felt like I got thrown into the pits of hell. And Chantal was there with me. She was my doula. And it was like, so this imagery of like the flames of hell burning around us, and me with my pregnant belly, eyes closed, like breathing through it, and her and my husband like holding the demons back. That's how it felt. And,
Right.
and I was like, I had this, like, I felt like I came out of a spiritual war. And I'm going, okay, like, yes, I need to recover, but this is not okay. And I heard another mom who went through something similar, and I feel like from my perspective, she was sabotaged.
It happens.
And she came out thanking the doctors and saying, oh my goodness, they saved my life. And I'm going, they caused your issue, according to me. From my perspective, like, and I'm going like, okay, I said, I can't be silent anymore. I'm like, I have to do something. And I don't have the energy or really the drive or whatever to, like, petition politicians and go up against the hospital system.
We all have
that
our
kind
piece,
of way. And I said, what I can do, I'm like, I can talk. I can help women get in touch with their bodies. I can help people know that it's okay to demand more.
Yes.
And
yes.
And follow their intuition and just approach life and birth and body in a different way. And so I said, okay.
Yeah.
And so
like really teach women what informed consent means.
Right. And
don't touch my body unless I gave you permission. And you've explained to me what you're going to do.
And start to feel like what you're talking about, like start to feel like, wow, I know my body. Like, I know I can do this. Like, I don't need someone to tell me how to do this. I don't need someone to tell me. I don't need a machine to tell me what's happening in my body. Like, I know my body.
Yes.
And I'm going, and that is a shift.
Yes.
And so, and that's a big reason why Chantal and I are doing this.
Oh, that's wonderful.
We were talking and we're like, you know what? Let's launch and, just have conversations.
I'm so glad you have. I think you're going to have tons of conversations because there's so much for us to talk about. And birth trauma, for me, I had a lot of birth trauma. Obviously, twilight sleep is, they woke me up after.
And that's where they put you under entirely? Is that what that is?
When I got to the hospital, they gave me an IV and didn't tell me what it was. And later, much later, years later, I found out that it was scopolamine and morphine.
Oh.
And the morphine keeps you sedated as when they need you to be sedated. Mm-hmm. And the scopolamine wipes your memory so that you don't remember when they brought you out of sedation. He was 12 hours old when I met him.
Wow.
It took a really long time I was 16.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. But
Yeah.
I'm 66, so I've had 50 years to integrate it and 300 births.
Right.
Yeah.
But also the children after that, I had 3 more children after that, and I didn't want that anymore. And fortunately, also we were, I remember the second baby 8 years later, they said, of course, I had a lot of miscarriages between those two, and no wonder, right?
Yeah.
But they said, would you like to be awake for this one? I'm still pretty young, I'm still like in my early 20s, and we didn't have the internet, and so your information really came from the library and the doctor, and there weren't a lot of books in the library. And so I was like, that sounds really good. So I was given an epidural and a forceps delivery. And I'm not going to get into every one of my birth stories. I'm just going to say, having mine start in birth trauma to me, when I started going to births and witnessing birth trauma, I literally would go sit in my car and cry. And the more I cried and the more my heart broke for women, the louder my voice got, the more determined I got. Even at times when I'd be at a birth and, I was highly educated with spinning babies. Every time I could take a class with them, I did. I was like, why is this not working? What's the problem? How can you have a whole birth where everything went beautifully? She went into labor easily. She softened, she dilated. And then we get towards transition and the baby just sits there. What's happening? Yeah. Why is this happening? And that's what really made me decide I just knew abdominal massage was going to make a difference. And, there's a lot of training. So I had to do some traveling. It took nearly a year for me to complete the training because each piece of it is a week long. But I was so excited when I got to the pregnancy and childbirth, which was the last piece of the training for me. And Rosita Arvigo, the woman who, when she came to this, what she did is, it was back in a time when people were leaving the country because men did not want to be sent off to Vietnam. And so her boyfriend decided to flee to Mexico, and she went with him. And at the time they were living in a bit of a commune, and she was the doctor, the naturopath, and she had a lot of training in herbs and body work and so many things. And so she went with him, and I won't reveal too much of her story, but we'll just say that she parted ways with him and took off on her own and went to Belize with a passion for the rainforest and the herbs in the rainforest. And she met a shaman, Don Eligio, and a midwife, Miss Hortense. And she studied with them for many, many years. And her fascination was, here's this culture that doesn't read or write. And this is back in the late 60s when she's there. And they are doing things that she has knowledge of, especially with pregnancy and childbirth. They were doing massage, myofascial releases, cranial sacral work. They were doing acupressure. They were doing all of these things that, like I said, she had training for, but had never been written down. This had been handed down generation to generation. Donna Eligio's ancestors had done it. In fact, she would also always tell the story about someone would ask him, like, and maybe it was her, that said, so why do you do that? And he would say, well, because she likes it. And, well, why do you think she likes it? Well, because it feels good. Like, that was the extent of his reasoning as to why he was doing these different techniques. And the midwife too, she came into this, from her ancestors, like, this is how we birth. I remember asking Rosita one time, So what do you do about posterior birth? Because it was happened to be happening a lot for me, for babies to be presenting OP or posterior. And that creates such a painful and difficult labor. And she said, oh, we don't have those.
Oh.
And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, we don't live the lifestyle that you do here. Westerners live, or the way we sit, drive. Our lifestyle has really created such a high need for intervention, chiropractic, pelvic floor therapy, RVGO, massage, because even though we're designed for birth, everything that we do tends to impede that. Our car seats are designed to tilt, to restrict the psoas. I do a lot of work with the psoas. Restrict the psoas. Sitting at desks for such a long period of time is, creating situations, recliners, crossing our legs, all these things that we do that impede the natural function of the uterus. And that's why I love chiropractic. It's such a beautiful relationship. I love it when we're doing it in the same day. It really makes me happy. Mm-hmm. And why I said it's good for us too, Andrea, because I don't have to work as hard. Right. I'm like, okay, so this piece is done. Now we can really go in there and really balance the uterus. And a typical treatment in pregnancy begins with the abdominal work, which is literally balancing the uterus and balancing the pelvic ligaments. I treat all the anteriorly. I treat the round ligaments. I go to the origin and the insertion with it, which is even teaching women, like, here is the origin and the insertion of your round ligaments. And, that can be different for every woman. You kind of have to map it out and say, oh, here they are. Mm-hmm. And the inguinal ligaments, and teaching them, that some things we do as women that are just natural. It's also lovely to say, oh, when you're taking your uterus and lifting it up and taking that weight out of your pelvis, you're actually helping your ligaments. So let's just define that a little bit, help you understand that. And then it's the abdominal massage strokes, which are literally a circular stroke around the uterus, and then an upward stroke. And both of those are doing balancing from centering the uterus, and also those upward strokes that are reminding the uterus, this is where you belong. This is where you fit in the body. And that can be during any time of our journey from menstruation to menopause. It needs reminding sometimes. That creates that space for optimal fetal positioning. And when you mirror that with gravity and movement, which is the foundation of spinning babies, that's beautiful. And that is really the success of my work, and why I have such a huge following for a breech, is because it's one of the few things that when you go to look for what you can do for a breech baby, there's not a lot. Chiropractic for sure, and we love that. And sometimes, and pelvic floor therapy too. And sometimes I get a lot of referrals from those two modalities all the time, because sometimes it works beautifully and you don't need anything else. And sometimes there's a missing piece. And that can be true for me as well. And why I refer out, it's like, we can do this work, but you also need that structural. You also need to understand your pelvic floor more. And so the anterior work is all about balancing the uterus, but the posterior work is also, that sacrum is a magic bone. The nerve flow, creating that nerve flow between and releasing the ligaments that are attached to the back of the uterus. Just and again, going to making space. That's really what it's so much about. having, as a doula, I do see what happens to that sacrum during birth. In fact, as a doula, that's where I spend most of my time, is posterior. But also, just freeing up the tailbone and working with the sit bones, all those things, all the muscles and the ligaments that I get in there. That's the place where, to me, we're reestablishing sometimes nerve flow that just, that women are in pain, and they don't, they may have had that pain prior to pregnancy, but then they get pregnant and it's so much worse. And that can come from, in my experience, well, trauma for one thing. That's a huge thing, but also, what did they do is, when they were growing up as women, I always tell women, I grew up in that era of time where tampons were being introduced. And I remember the commercials, you can do anything. And they had all these commercials that made us see what boys did and the fact that we could do it too. And I totally agree with that and believe in that. But what we lost in that transition to make our periods easier is that what we should have been doing during those times, which is to rest and restore, and to allow the uterus to grow into its functional state of the lining and filling up with blood. And of course, if you're a youth athlete, and you're out there and your uterus is full of blood and you're doing all these things that are throwing that uterus around, we get this torsion around the cervix. And that is such a problem with breech babies, with posterior babies, with difficulty in labor, is getting that torsion out of the uterus, which Maya is wonderful for. And so are some of the techniques from spinning babies, and so is pelvic floor and chiropractic. There's techniques, but with Maya, it's very direct. I'm like right there, releasing that tension, because I'm working directly on the uterus. I'm releasing that tension and helping women identify it, and then creating, what they can do at home to support it, which a lot is, the self-care piece. That makes such a difference. And why I love when women come in early in pregnancy, and then we're doing this work throughout the pregnancy, and then we can often avoid those complications. When they come in later in pregnancy, often I get women because they just found out they were breached. Isn't that how we met, Chantal?
I wasn't breached, but I was late in my pregnancy, and my doula was like, you got to go see her. I think I was probably like,
oh, that's right. You're saying you were having prodromal labor.
Yeah, the prodromal labor. And she was like, well, maybe you could use this massage. And I remember just being like, she's doing something magical. I don't know exactly what she's doing. And that was before it was really, more into all this sort of body work and spirituality and everything else. But I was like, I know she's doing something really special.
Was this for your first or your second?
My first. This was for Chanel. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I do meet women a lot of times late in pregnancy, because I don't advertise. So it's really word of mouth that gets you in the door.
Yeah.
It's too complicated for me to do that. But when that happens, a lot of times what we can do is create that balance, which can make labor easier. But it's when they come in early pregnancy that by the time they get to labor, both the uterus is in alignment, and that's really what it's about. Like I care much more about what's happening with the uterus than I do where the baby is, because I feel like if we keep balancing the uterus, the baby will find its way. I do use gravity and movement, absolutely, as a follow-up. But without the balance to the uterus, a lot of times those things don't work. I mean, a lot of women who have been doing spinning babies just over and over and over, were turning themselves upside down on that ironing board, and nothing is working. And it's not we really get in there and balance the uterus and free up the sacrum and create that space and help them identify with their own bodies, like where's the tension, what's going, learning how fitness and can really impact the uterus. And, I think fitness is good and it's healthy to do a lot of things. I just think that in our culture, we have such a focus on it that women, when they're young, they are doing a lot of things that are impacting the uterus and not taking the time out. And so they end up with a lot of pain that is unnecessary. That's what I hope for my granddaughter. I hope my granddaughter just sails through the whole thing, that she doesn't have period pain, that she doesn't have a problem getting pregnant if she wants to, that she, I have an older granddaughter too, and haven't lived with her, so she gets it vicariously. But we talk about it, just the ease of her potential motherhood.
Yeah.
I'm not that she's only 22. But to me, the thing that we can affect with body work is both. Well, there's a saying that Donna Lee Heo has, and I really live by it, and that is the uterus is the woman's core. And when it's out of balance, she's out of balance, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And it's really true. You can work on someone and they come in and whatever, maybe they're in pain or just baby's not in the right position or whatever. Or they can't get pregnant, whatever it is. And then you do the work, and then there's this glow in their eyes, there's this like aliveness that happens. And it seems like, one organ, how does that affect our whole bodies? But it really matters so much. And therein, to me, you mirror that with reducing birth trauma, and there's my passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
amazing. And even though I'm probably done having babies, I'm now thinking maybe I should get a massage, because just like learning about how it can help balance your hormones, and like you just said, it's sort of like our core. I'm like, I wonder, that could probably still be helpful.
Well, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
Because postpartum, postpartum massage, really what you don't realize because you're still young is that what happens to us in all that journey, all the way through holding our babies, whether we're, from the very first period to holding your babies, matters when you go through menopause.
Okay.
It matters a lot, the position of your uterus. So if you think about how when the baby's growing and all your organs are getting pushed back, behind you, and you've alluded to the fact that your birth, at least one of them, was traumatic.
Yeah, both of them were. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So traumatic pushing, surgical birth, all these things that impact us when we're having babies, you may not even notice it for a decade or two, but you start going through menopause and it revisits. And so, really being able to go through postpartum, whether you're planning on having more children, where you just want a healthy life as a woman, it really helps, because it does do what you said, which was to help balance the hormones, but it also positions the uterus, which is unique to Maya, that we are directly. I saw a beautiful video one time of a laparoscopy. And during the laparoscopy, and they were looking at the uterus, they did the Maya strokes. And you literally watched this uterus like be picked up, and she was jumping. She was like,
wow, that is so cool.
I know.
It's really cool.
Wow.
So you're working not just on the uterus, but the fascia, the matrix of the fascia in the body, the mind-body connection. It's happening on so many levels that, to me, like, I wish I'd found this when I was a young woman, but I'm so glad I did as an older woman, because it's changed the rest of my menopausal journey. And also I get to help so many people. I get to help my daughter and her daughter and my granddaughters. I have another new granddaughter. She's just one.
Oh,
I have 11 grandchildren.
wow.
Most of those are male.
Okay.
But they're beautiful too. I've had the opportunity to love a lot of little masculine souls. I feel like that makes a difference too in
Yeah.
the journey of us women.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's the, to me, that's it becomes a legacy in a way. There's a lot of people that tell me I can't retire. But here's what I want to say.
I can see why.
No, you can retire. It's just I want to send like 5 people to all get trained by you, and then put them different places around the country. So it's like, yes, they'll be good
I
people.
would love that. I would love that. And I've attempted to do some mentoring through the years, but I really haven't attracted anyone to me that was the ideal person. So I've sent people to do Maya training, and they've done it. I think it's the integration piece that is different about what I do. It's being a doula, being a massage therapist. It's why I named my business my massage doula. The years of work with women, the Maya and the spinning babies, and the curiosity. When I was at a birth, I would be curious. Like, I remember one time, you can cut these stories out if you want, but on one of I was a very young doula. I had just started. I wasn't necessarily young myself, but I had just started, and I went to a woman's apartment. And when I entered the apartment, she was laying in a recliner with some headphones on. And I'm literally going to tell this whole story because it's so beautiful. You have to hear it. She had some headphones on, and she was laying back in a recliner. And I didn't really have the spinning babies training there to go, oh, get out of the recliner. I just observed, right? So, and I noticed with every contraction, she was going, and she through every contraction. And so pretty soon she kind of opened her eyes and went like, oh, the doula's here. And so she got up, and when she did that, we started walking around, and she had a really lovely way of timing herself. She would touch pieces of furniture to help herself understand whether her contractions were getting closer together. But my observation of her was she was probably in early labor. She was managing the contractions. They weren't super long. And then at one point she turned to me and she said, and she pointed at her pubis, and she said, Charlotte, if it weren't for this one pain I have right here, this wouldn't be bad at all. And so my yoga brain kicked in, and I said, okay, well, let's try this. And I had her stand up against the wall and take one leg and put it up and open it up to the side on a chair. And I said, and I'll hold you. Let's just have a contraction. And she had one contraction, to which she put her leg down and went, oh, I think I'm pushing. And I was, as this young doula, was like,
just wait.
Let's not do that here. My husband and I at 8 o'clock in the morning, trying to go up 400 from Atlanta to North Fulton.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh my God, let's get there, please, let's get there.
Yeah.
And we got there, and this is where I learned never to stand behind a naked laboring woman. Got soaked in amniotic fluid.
Oh no.
And then we got her into the tub that was in the triage, and we got her into the tub. Like within 20 minutes, her baby was born.
Wow.
And the thing about when her baby was born that was so beautiful was for an hour, that baby went,
Wow, really?
for an hour.
Wow.
Like so many lessons in that whole birth. That's why I say women teach me. I learned from the baby. I was like, you were part of this the whole time. You're not just this separate being having your own experience. You're connected to your mother. You're having it together. I learned anatomy is really important in labor.
Yeah.
You know, the fact, and that baby had a little bruise right on her forehead where she was stuck on the pubis, probably because her mother loved to recline. And, you know, and so, you know, later on in labors, I probably would have caught that baby. I wouldn't have been like, let's rush you out of here and traumatize you. Not that as a doula, that's my intention to catch babies.
Right.
You just have to sometimes, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
And the more you do, the less traumatic it is for you as a doula. I still say, thank you for midwives. I would much rather they do their job. But, you know, I would have recognized what was happening. You know, I didn't then. I was just, you know, responding to my instincts, and thankfully got there and she had a baby.
That's an amazing story.
It is amazing.
It is an amazing story. It sticks with me. Lots of them do, you know, like I said, that's what you learn from what you do. I learned hands-on labor. And to me, a lot of time with a doula, you spend not using touch because we're kind of trained that way, right? We're trained like, let her do what she needs to do. And I totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. But as, you know, a touch therapist, I'm always like, I know when and where, you know, to
have that training.
Yeah, to introduce. And I'm even at this point in my career, like if you ask me about, I mean, I can, you know, talk to you about certain muscles and ligaments that I work on all the time. But if you're going to give me an anatomy test, I'm going to fail it. But if you ask me,
I will fail it too, probably.
But if you ask me to find it with my hands, I will do that.
Wow.
I'll be able to find where the misalignment is and correct. That's, you know, they've been well honed.
I feel you and Andrea both have that skill because I know Andrea can do that as well.
I love that I'm meeting you, Andrea.
Yeah.
Are you also doula?
No, I'm a chiropractor. I do know that. That's my only degree. I'm not a doula.
But you're
honestly, I don't know if I have the stomach for being a birth worker per se.
I can understand why you say that.
Like in truth, I'm just being honest. I think it's amazing that people do, but you have to be like, you have to be wired a certain way. It's like, I could not make it as a nurse. I could not make it, I mean, for multiple reasons, but like, I mean, like I get nauseous having to give an IV to a fake arm. And my teacher's standing there going, Andrea, you know it's fake. Yes, this is a rubber arm. You can't hurt it. And I'm like, oh, I know, but I feel so weird. And so anyway, that's me. But
yeah, I thought that I had a weak stomach. I mean, I did raise a bunch of boys, so there is that. They do kind of harden you a bit on your gut, but but I really kind of thought I would be. I thought blood and all that, but I found out quickly, like I'm fine, you know, I can do that. Oftentimes you leave a birth and covered in stuff.
Right.
You go in and get you a coffee and people are like, you smell funny. But I'm okay with that, you know. I dive in. I'm very hands-on as a doula and as a therapist, you know. Not as a manipulation, you know, like I don't feel like I have to direct things, you know. I follow her lead.
But I think that's the key to body work, and people forget that. Is it's I'm not the radio. They're the radio. They're leading the steps. I just have to go where their body brings me. Like
I love that.
They're the frequency that I'm following. It's not me directing.
Yeah.
I just have to hear the music that they're playing. And if I can flow with that, then
I love how you said
I find like you just find what they need. And I feel like that applies to any body work and energy work as well, because I'm also an energy healer.
Me too. Me too. That's where I started. So it's really, I don't really advertise that. It's so integrated into my work.
Right. And I think that becomes, it's just you, it's you.
Yeah.
You know, you are the healer that you are, and it's from the experiences you have and the knowledge you have and the trainings you've had. And it's all of it.
It is all of it. Yeah. And I love that I've met you. Like,
yeah,
I need your
me too. I know. I'm not in the Atlanta region anymore, though. I moved to Chattanooga.
Oh, okay. Well,
but I still would love to share your information with the person who purchased my practice. So
I always have women that are taking off to Tennessee and North Carolina and things. They're like, you need to help me find people.
So if people move to the Chattanooga area, that's where I'm currently at.
Wonderful. Good for Chattanooga.
Yeah. So soon I will be working again. I've taken a very long maternity leave because it was a challenging pregnancy. And so, like, as much as I love what I do, I was so happy to stop.
Yeah.
I need to stop. I was so happy to stop. So I stopped.
Self-care.
12 or 13 weeks, something like that. And I haven't gone back yet, though I have adjusted a couple brand new babies. I'll just step out of my mat leave for just a little bit, like you sweet little 2-week-old babies. I'm like, I can do that.
And you adjusted both my babies when they were like a couple days old, right?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do. I mean, I love working with pregnant moms too. I love working with everyone. It's actually the truth of it, but my most favorite is the tiny babies.
I know. I love when
my most favorite.
Bring them in and we get to massage them. I love it.
It's so,
and I love
that so sweet.
Chiropractors, you will attend, not that necessarily you do this, but the chiropractors will often attend a birth.
Some do, yes.
Or they'll come to your house immediately postpartum and adjust you and the baby because you're not ready out yet.
I've never attended a birth. I was asked to, but then it ended up happening very quickly in the middle of the night.
And it wasn't necessary.
But I went the next day. So
wow, that's cool.
So technically, legally, at least for Georgia and Tennessee, I don't know about the other states. Technically, for chiropractors, we are only supposed to adjust a baby once the umbilical cord is detached.
Oh, okay.
Because we're not allowed to like overstep into the field of OBGYN. So there's some like tiny weird rules, but I know that, especially historically.
Yeah.
Not everyone.
Yes, indeed.
That way.
Yeah. We do have to stay in our lane.
Absolutely. But let me not get myself in trouble. No.
Yeah, we want to stay in our lane. But I think that, as home birth grows in Georgia, like I feel like that's part of the network that's so important is the providers that are outside of that realm. It can help so much. I mean, that's again, reducing birth trauma, bring it home. When it's possible. It's not always. Also, the Atlanta Birth Center is an amazing place.
Mm-hmm.
The babies that are born there are so lucky. I've doulaed there quite a bit, and that is where my office is. I wish we had more of that. Do you still have a birth center in Chattanooga?
I don't believe so.
I think it's closed. I think COVID.
I think it closed, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Because the lactation consultant I said, she wants to open up one. And I'm not aware that one exists here.
Yeah. It took us 5 years as a community to get it open, to find a place, to get the accreditation, to.
Yeah.
get the state of Georgia on board with it.
Right. I was actually at the grand opening
For you.
celebration for the birth center.
So was I.
Yeah. I
Oh,
wouldn't have known
cool.
you at the time, but I was
Yeah.
there
Mm-hmm.
at the gala that they had.
That's
Yeah. It
awesome.
was
Gala
great.
grand opening.
Yes, it was wonderful.
One moment. I just need to step for just a second. I'm just going to turn off my video. I have a screaming baby. Let me just see if she's
Go
hungry.
ahead, please.
So I keep talking. One second.
Oh, well, Chantal, you'll give me a chance to catch up on you, and do you mind sharing what happened with your birth?
Well, so with my daughter, the one that I came for massage with you, I did a home birth, and I ended up having retained placenta. And so I had to do a transfer. It was coming out kind of like in pieces. So I had to do a hospital transfer to AMC, and then they put me under anesthesia. And then they made me, sign the waiver, like we might have to give you, like, remove your uterus. Yeah. And then luckily, the Dr. Overstreet, he was able to manually remove my placenta, but I had lost so much blood just from like at home, the hospital ride. And when he removed it, apparently it was quite a bit of hemorrhaging. So I ended up with like 3 blood transfusions and like an extended stay. Then I got postpartum preeclampsia, and it was just a whole thing.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah. So, but
That's a lot.
the birth itself is actually quite, magical, which is
Good.
interesting. So it was like very magical. I had my golden hour, and then it just went south.
South. Yeah, we can't help that sometimes,
Yeah.
things happen, but that's why we have hospital care.
Right. Yeah. So then with my second, I was like, I can't do it at home because I had too many risk factors, and it wasn't as traumatic. It was an induction because I was developing preeclampsia again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then so I got induced, and it was just like a very fast labor. And I hemorrhaged again, but it was in the hospital, so it was contained, but it was like very severe compared to the first time. Like if I had been at home, I would not have made it. Like it was that sort of hemorrhage. So that was quite traumatic. But honestly, in retrospect to the first birth, and I didn't need a blood transfusion, I was like, that wasn't that bad. But my doula was very traumatized. I felt so bad. She witnessed it, and she was not okay. She was okay afterwards. And I felt so bad.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
That's why we have to have an iron stomach.
Yeah.
And
I
nerves.
know.
Yeah. Again, I raised a bunch of boys, so my nerves are different.
Yeah.
Actually, my daughter's the one that hardened my nerves.
Makes sense. Yeah.
She was probably more challenging than all of them put together.
Yeah. Well, it was so nice having you on the podcast.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Do you mind if I just take a moment and share about who Rosita Arvigo is and where she can be found?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I told you a little bit of her backstory, but now, what she does, she's got to be 80 and she still teaches. She still lives in Belize. She's still active practitioner, and an herbalist in Belize. You can go on YouTube and find all these, if you just Google her on YouTube, find all these wonderful historical videos of her, Donna Lehio, Miss Hortense, all these things that I think are so wonderful if anybody really wants to find out about her. And also she's the current way that the institute she has right now is the Maya Abdominal Collective. And anybody that might be interested, we need more abdominal massage therapists. It's a wonderful, wonderful practice. I can't say enough about it for pregnancy and childbirth, but that's my perspective. I know because that's my passion, but it has so many benefits. So I'm hoping maybe set this way somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think how there's only like a handful, like maybe 2 or 3 in a city as big as Atlanta is crazy.
I know it is.
I'm going, we only have 1 here in Chattanooga, and honestly, I consider it very lucky for a city this size to have someone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm
Um,
surprised by that. Now, if you go outside of the United States, they're everywhere. California, tons of them. There are several in New York, but spread out across this country, there just aren't that many. I have a wonderful doppelganger in South Carolina, and I know they're happy to have her. I think she's the only one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here, I think there probably have been people who have taken the training, but they don't actively work as an abdominal therapist. So more.
Yeah, I think that'd be amazing.
And just to clarify one thing, because I think a lot of people feel like you can't get massage or can't get abdominal massage, especially in the first trimester. What is your stance on that? Do people need to wait until 12 or 13 weeks, or can they get care?
I'm happy to, at any point, like do some light touch work with anyone, depending, just to help relieve some symptoms. I won't touch the uterus until, I think the earliest I've ever done is 15 weeks. And at 15 weeks, the touch is so light. It's a graduated thing throughout. So if I'm in the first trimester, it's really soft hands only, and I'm really not treating the uterus. And so after that, second trimester, it's sort of graduates all the way until we're prepping for labor. That there's more work as we go. It's very detailed towards where you are in your pregnancy, for sure. So yeah, you need some neck and shoulder work, or emotional support or whatever. Happy to soft hands, same thing with fertility. I don't work on a uterus that is bleeding or ovulating. I feel like she's busy, leave her alone. And if someone comes in, I'll work on other parts of the body, obviously, to increase blood flow, lymph flow, nerve flow, and all that. But as far as like the uterus goes, I might, do some energy work, but that's all.
Okay. Very cool.
Postpartum too. I guess I should say that as well. Part of the same thing. I use the 6-week window, just like everything else does, and there's a good reason for that. We want you to take 6 weeks, and except chiropractors, go see your chiropractor the next day.
It does look very different though.
It does. It's the same thing.
So
if you come in after a birth and you just are hurting from the birth, there's a lot I could do. I just am not touch the uterus.
Well, I am definitely going to be booking a massage now.
Good.
Those 2 babies, I'm like, I think I could use it. And
I'd love to see you.
Yeah, it was so amazing. Like everything that you shared, I almost feel like we need to do another episode. There's just so much that we could go into. It was so good.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
I literally could talk about it for hours, and sometimes I have, and I enjoy it. So I really love the opportunity for both of you. I love getting to know you, Andrea, and know about you. And I certainly send people to Chattanooga, and got to look this girl up when she gets back to work after she's transitioned from those mommy times. And I'm really happy for you that you're indulging in that self-care. And I use that word on purpose because we need to indulge ourselves. And you did ask me a question. I'm going to go ahead and answer it, even though you didn't ask it. If I have one piece of advice for It is slow down, mama. Slow down.
Mm.
Slow down. Pay attention to what's happening in your body. Whatever else you've got going on in the world, you can re-engage with that later on. Take a pause.
Mhm.
Take a pause and appreciate what's happening. Enjoy the journey. It's magical. It's spiritual if you allow it to be. And nurture yourself with self-care and practitioners that support you. And don't feel like it's a competition with other women. You have your
Mhm.
journey.
Mhm.
All have an individual journey, and nobody else can tell you how to do it, not even your provider. So
Yeah.
Yes, that's beautiful.
that's
Yeah.
my
And I think you told me that when I
Probably
saw
did.
that, you said, slow down.
Slow down.
Yeah.
If I have to tell another woman to stop doing deadlifts, I don't know.
I
Because
was
start a
doing
podcast
deadlifts at
on
least.
don't do deadlifts.
Oh, that's funny.
This has been very enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been amazing. This has been, yeah, just really fabulous. So
Yeah,
Thank you.
for
such a
sharing.
pleasure.
I
Yeah.
really wish you well on this journey of yours. I know it's going to be wonderful and it's so needed. Like really, really needed. And happy to come back sometime. Let me know.
Yeah, we would love
Yeah.
that. We would
Yeah, we would
definitely
love
love
that.
that. For sure.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you
And to
so much.
thank you for everyone who's been listening too.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
yeah.